Ma'am. Nasa meeting rin ako.
Good day po, Doc Ong. Ako po si Cholo. Ako po yung organizer ng webinar. Naririnig po ba ako?
Cholo? Or Andrew? Yung audience natin, mix ba? Or local lahat?
Good afternoon po. Yung target audience po talaga namin tapos sila din po yung yung pinaniniwalaan po namin na-reach ng core. Although kung meron po kaming na-reach outside sa campus po, hindi na po kami sure. Pero ayun po, mas sure kami na bulk ng audience namin, UP din naman.
Hello po. Yes po, target audience po ay students po.
Hindi lang po yun. Pero
Yeah, ngayon po, Doc. Can you hear anything po? If you can hear it po, can you please open your mic and try to say something? Sound check po.
Kanino kay Doc Ong yan, ano?
Hello, mic check. Dr. Ong? How about now? May naririnig po ba kayo? Okay na po. Sige po. Doc, if you can hear this po, can you please open your mic and say something for sound check?
Okay. Sound check. 1, 2, 3. Sound check. Sound check. Hello. Hello. Sound check. Okay na? Sound check. Sound
Yes po,
check.
sir.
Okay.
Yes po, naririnig po.
All right. Thanks.
Ang dami na nila sa waiting room. Hello. Dr. Ong, if you can
Yes.
hear this po,
Hello, naririnig
You-
na.
Yeah, I can hear.
okay. If you can hear this po, can you try talking po? And putting your slide, sharing your slide.
Okay. So, sharing screen. All right. Let me share screen.
Okay, Doc Ong is talking.
All right. Can you see it? Can you see
Yes
my
po.
slide? All right.
Yes po.
Yes, naririnig na po.
Okay. I'll stop share.
Sige po.
Okay. There you go.
So, we'll start admitting people in po at around 1 minute.
All right.
So, yan po. Thank you again po for coming. Thank you, Dr. Villegas. Thank you, Dr. Ong. Thank you, Ma'am Mina. Thank you po. Thank you for lending your time po for this webinar. And good luck with your presentations po. Oops, okay. Ito. Good day po everyone. We'll start the program proper in around 5 minutes. So for now, rest easy lang po tayo. Sound trip lang po.
ああこのまま僕たちの声が世界の端っこまで消えることなく届いたりしたらいいのにな。そしたらね二人でどんな言葉を花と消えることない約束お二人でせーので言おう。願ったら何がしかが叶うその言葉の目をもう見れなくなったのは一体いつからだろうか何故だろうか。ああ雨の止むまさにその切れだと虹の出発点終点とこの命果てる場所に何かがあるっていつも言い張っていた。いつか行こうぜ生命も認め磨いたくの感情にハイタッチして時間にキスを5次元にからかわれてそれでも君を見るよ。また初めましての合図を決めよう。君の名を今追いかけるよ。
Hello, hello. Naririnig ba ako?
Rinig naman. Sige,
Okay.
start na tayo.
Okay.
Hello po. Hello, my name is Pocholo Miguel M. Alvarez.
Hello, my name is John Carl Edward D. Manimbo, and we are your hosts for today, and we'd like to welcome everyone to Silakbo, a disaster preparedness webinar on volcanic emergencies.
This webinar is brought to you by UP Red Cross Youth, together with UP Pre-Medical Honor Society, and in cooperation with Agham Youth, UP Diliman, UP Association of Business Administration Majors, UP Future Library and Information Professionals of the Philippines, UP Haring Ibon, UP Namnama, UP Physics Association, and UP Samahan tungo sa Progresibong Administrasyon.
This webinar aims to provide practical and timely knowledge on disaster and the relevant safety protocols, focusing on volcanic disturbances and how to mitigate its effects.
So, ito po, here's a brief reminder for the participants to keep their microphones muted while the speaker is giving their presentation. All questions will be compiled and given to the speakers during their respective question and answer portions. Now, without further ado, let us begin with our program.
Yeah, tama. Let's get started. Our first speaker earned her bachelor's degree at the University of the Philippines Diliman National Institute of Geological Sciences, ranking third place at 1990 Geology Board exams. She later took an MS degree in geology at the Arizona State University in 1997 and earned MS and doctoral degrees in communication at the University of the Philippines Open University in 2012 and 2017 respectively. Her fields of interest include earthquakes, tsunami, and volcano oral history and narratives, disaster education, community disaster preparedness, and hazards and risks perception for earthquakes. She is currently Chief Science Research Specialist at the Geologic Disaster Awareness and Preparedness Division, or the GDAPD, of the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. Let us all welcome Dr. Mylene Martinez Villegas.
Good afternoon. Let me share my slide. Okay. Okay, can you hear me now? And is it, wait. Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
heard naman po.
Yes po, rinig naman.
Okay, good afternoon. And thank you, UP Red Cross Youth, for inviting FIVOX this afternoon. And I'll focus on volcanoes and volcanic hazards because I know our next speaker, Dr. Ong, will be talking about the preparedness part. So let's begin. Oh, I think I just have to remind everyone, like, there are a lot of recent damaging earth volcanic activities. Ito ay nakapeg lang sa 1911, but I have to remind you, if you look at our history, if you look at old books, there will be a lot of descriptions of volcanic eruptions, especially Fort Mayon, Taal, and even Hibok-Hibok in Mindanao. And we also have just this year, January, the eruption of Taal, and I think that's why, again, medyo heightened yung interest about volcanic eruptions. So it was a very, very short activity, but if you look at yung history ng Taal, actually, may mga eruptions siya na mas prolonged. So in terms of preparedness, because kayo ay Red Cross Youth, and I think mga nagvo-volunteer, it's very important for us to understand, di ba? Yung mga pwedeng gawing activities ng isang bulkan. Hindi lang bulkan ang trabaho ng FIVOX. FIVOX is the National Monitoring Agency for Earthquakes, Tsunami, and Volcanic Eruptions. So again, a lot of earthquakes in the past. Ito ay ilan lamang, no? But if you again look back sa history, there have been a lot of very large damaging earthquakes that affected many, many parts of the Philippines. This is very, intro ng geology. I think most of you, since undergrad kayo, you've taken up, depende kung anong year na kayo, geology 1 or 111. And if you look at this upper part, these are all the earthquakes generated all over the world, and the red dots represent these earthquakes. And they actually represent what we call boundaries of plates. If you tectonics theory in geology. So supposedly, well, sa explanation ng science natin, the Earth's surface is broken into several pieces, and these pieces actually move. And pag gumagalaw siya, syempre, those are what creates yung ating mga earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Looking closely here, you can see yung several plates, major plates like Pacific Plate, American, South America and North American Plate, and of course Australian Plate, and of course yung Philippines, nandito lang tayo. And lahat yan, they move against each other, and that is the reason why we have earthquake occurrences and volcanic eruptions. This is another view. The red big arrows represent the direction how these plates move. And so mapapansin nyo, no, the Philippines, there's one Pacific plate that's moving this way, while yung Eurasian plate is moving this way. So nagsasalubong and naiipit tayo. And so we're actually in a very, very active boundary ng plate. And that explains why we have a lot of earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Ito yung iba't ibang klase ng boundaries. Pwede kasing sumusuksok, pag nagsasalubong, pwede ring nag-slide past one another, or pwede ring naghihiwalay. And nandito tayo sa island arc setting kung saan yung oceanic plate ay sumasalubong sa isa pang plate, kaya nagkakaroon ng pagsuksok, or the oceanic plate subducts, and that's why you have what we call island arcs are created, and these are your volcanoes, where you have your volcanoes. If we zoom in into yung Philippine area, this is the world map, and here is where Philippines is located. And if you move to this part of the screen, you can see that Pacific plate showing the movement towards this direction, yung red big arrow, and then Eurasian plate moving this way. And that really puts the Philippines, alam mo yan, iniipit talaga tayo. And so it's a very, very active region geotectonically. And that's why, if you move closely here sa ating yung slide, this is a block diagram that shows yung movement, where you have yung Philippine Trench, the Philippine Sea Plate subducting dito sa Philippine Island, and then yung Eurasian Plate this way, and then you have your Manila Trench. Ito yung mga subduction zones. And the red lines sa Philippines, ito yung mga cracks that is formed because of yung dalawang moving plates towards each other. And so that creates all yung active faults natin. And so if you look at the seismicity of the Philippines, we have about an average of 20 earthquakes recorded per day. And 4 or 5 of these are actually felt every week. Yung iba, hindi natin nararamdaman, but nare-record siya ng ating mga very sensitive instruments. And then in a year, we have about 100 to 150 felt earthquakes. And in the last 400 years, we have about 100 destructive earthquakes. So, ganun na kadami. Actually, ang sarap magbasa ng those who are into history. Actually, it's so good to read, and we have one colleague in the office who studies yung mga historical earthquakes. And ang mga ginagawa niya is to document, and confirm. If you look at yung mga old churches, meron doon yung mga signs na nakalagay sa entrance. And minsan na-describe doon yung mga anong taon na-destroy itong church na to. And these are very interesting information. So you will see here, this is the map of the Philippines that you can barely see because of the red dots na sobrang dami. And these are actually all the earthquakes since 1897 until 2002. Hindi pa nga updated, no? So yung mga red dots, these are the epicenters. And mapapansin ninyo, talagang covered yung buong Pilipinas. And it actually coincides with what we call the earthquake generators, or yung active faults, yung red line, where we have the Philippine Fault, which runs from north, Luzon, central Luzon, and then south, tinatahak niyan Quezon area, and of course, eto dito sa may Kinyangan, and then going to Masbate, and to Mindanao, Leyte and Masbate, and then Mindanao. And then we have the trenches in white. Ito yung kung saan nga nagsasalubong yung mga plates. That's why we have the subduction zone. Okay. Oh, so again, we are part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Ang description yan yung kung saan nandun lahat yung mga lindol, and of course, all the volcanoes that you normally find. And actually, that runs from yung dito sa side ng Pacific, sa Americas, and then sa Japan, and then sa Philippines, and then Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea. And of course, nandito yung Pilipinas. So if you look closely, ito yung focus natin today. When we say volcano, it's actually a vent or hill or a mountain. Actually, pwede mababa, pwede mataas, no? Creating materials, molten rocks and gases have been extracted. So hindi lahat ng bundok ay bulkan, pero maraming bulkan ay mukhang bundok. So always remember that. And in geology, you would know yung differences in tatlong bato, di ba? And if you look at igneous rocks, ito yung mga bato na alam natin na talagang galing sa bulkan. So pwede rin kasing mababa. It's a very small crater. Like we have a lot of small volcanoes as well. And we have about 300, more than 300 volcanoes all over the Philippines. These are represented by all the triangles that you see. Mayroong yellow, may green, and may bilog-bilog na green. Yun yung mga inactive, no? I haven't seen all of these volcanoes, but I've seen a bunch. Lalo na yung within the 24 active volcanoes. The list is actually, in our website. But eto, let's see if this is better. We have 24 considered as active volcano. Ano ibig sabihin ng active? Explain natin sa next slide yan. Pero mas kilala nyo siyempre yung ilan dito. Like Pinatubo, of course, and kakatapos lang ng Taal, may Mayon, and may iba pa. I'm sure depende kung saan kayo galing, yun yung mas kilala nyong bulkan. Sa Pilipinas, no, when we classify volcanoes, tatlo. Active, potentially active, or inactive. When we say active volcanoes, these are volcanoes that erupted within historical times. So, our history, ibig sabihin written, that will be like the last 600 years. Or pwede may oral tradition. Actually, the focus of mga recent work pa now na research involves how people, eyewitnesses would remember eruption stories. So, erupted within the recent geologic period, last 10,000 years. That's considered young in geology kasi, di ba, we're talking here about millions of years. So, 10,000 years is very young. But this should be based on radiometric dating. And in the very recent years, may mga volcanic seismicity. When we talk of potentially active, these are volcanoes we know they are young looking because of the landform. Unfortunately, wala pa masyadong records. But this is yung ginagawa ng extensive studies so that we can get datable material so that we can determine the age, and so we can see if yung potentially active ba malalagay sa active o malalagay sa inactive. So nandun siya sa in between. Inactive, these are very old volcanoes geomorphologically. Long period, wala ng activity, evident na it's very old because of the weathering and erosion. So in the books now, lalo na sa mga grade school, no, this is what you will see. Hindi yung pag international titignan nyo, may dormant, may ganyan. We don't use those terms. Hindi kasi siya applicable sa atin. Okay. If you would like to try, I have your 6 photos of very beautiful volcanoes. People like me, geologists like me, I think even those who love nature, yung view pa lang ng vulkan, they are really beautiful. And so I don't know if you can like identify some of these, lalo na kung malapit kayo sa mga lugar na to. We have A, B, C, D, E, F. You can type this sa chat box and someone would, well, maybe later I can read them kasi wala ako ngayong nakikita kundi yung PowerPoint slide ko. They are beautiful and, tourist attraction, kaya nga income ng mga local, mga provinces natin yan. Unfortunately, we have to learn how to live with volcanoes because they may be quiet now, but then suddenly they may not be. And this is what they will do. Worst case, yan yung tinatawag na explosive eruption. If you see this kind of cloud, ito yung ash cloud, no? Ash column. And so yung A, B, C, D, E, F natin, kaninang magaganda at mukhang tahimik, ngayon, eto na siya. Pwedeng ganito yung gawin niya. Sa record natin, ito yung nagawa na niya before. So ano pwede niyang gawin in the future? And I think that's what you want to know kasi yan yung topic nyo later, no? Yung preparedness part. And so I'm trying to give you like, now you can see ano yung pwedeng gawin. Imagination is very important. When we do exercises like, so ano yung worst case, ano yung pwedeng scenario, pwede bang ganito na yung pagputok niya? I will not identify these volcanoes for now. You will see in the mga succeeding slides anyway. Okay. Iba-ibang shape ng volcanoes. Some can be very wide, yung area, but very low. Yung mga shield volcanoes. We have a lot of stratovolcanoes, steep sides, and if you compare the size in terms of yung area covered, no, makikita nyo yung differences. If we have small volcanoes in their cones, these are one shot, one time eruption, and then pwede rin calderas like, Taal. So magkaiba ng size. And the size and the shape really depends on the type of volcano, which depends on ano yung magma niya. Ano yung magma? Ito yung molten material underneath. And iba-iba yung composition, iba-iba yung pwedeng gawin ng bulkan. Kaya hindi pare-pareho yung behavior ng volcanoes natin. May kanya-kanya siyang ugali. That's one of the things that I'd like all of you to remember kung may takeaway kayo today. Itong bulkan na si Taal, hindi yan pareho ng gagawin ni Mayon or ni Canlaon or ni Hibok-Hibok o ni Pinatubo. Okay? And because it's controlled by yung composition. Pwedeng quiet type siya or effusive, pwede ring explosive siya pag nag-erupt. So, iba-iba. And so, yun yung mga tinatawag natin basaltic, intermediate, or silicic type. Okay? And napakilang dito viscosity kung how easily yung magma would flow. Kapag hindi siya masyadong viscous, mas madaling mag-flow, ito yung mas less explosive. And pagka naman sobrang viscous niya, katulad ng Pinatubo type, yun yung mga explosive type. Okay? So just remember, yung type ng mga bato at magmang type ng magma and mga bato niya afterwards, greatly influences kung anong klase ng pagputok yung gagawin niya. And of course, gases. And iba-iba yung pwedeng gawin kapag pumuputok. Baka naiisip nyo lang yung parang Hawaii na quiet, madali yon. But we have a lot of different types of eruptions sa nakikita natin. And it could lead to a lot of hazards. Pag may pagputok, pwedeng may panganib. Okay? And yun yung gusto nating iwasan. That's why we need to prepare and we need to make sure that people are informed habang tahimik yung bulkan. So, effusive and explosive eruptions. Pag effusive, ito yung mga simpleng lava flow. Incandescent rivers. Alam niyo yung nagbabaga na parang nagfo-flow lang ng quietly. Molten. Yung magma, pag lumabas, lava na. So, molten materials coming up and then just flowing quietly. And these are normally what you find sa Hawaii. But we also have our own. Pero hindi siya as parang river-like, like what you see sa Hawaii. No? This is one of the impacts. Pwede actually siyang kung saan-saan dumadaan. For the case of Hawaii, ito yung inuman niya, nag-encroach na sa mga populated areas. And then, after some time, ganito na ang itsura niya. Wala na, hindi mo na madadaan yung kalsada kasi these are really very hard rocks when hindi na siya tumigas na siya. And then you have, pag gas rich siya, pwede magkaroon ng lava fountain naman. Nice to see, but dangerous. So you shouldn't be like getting near these kinds of eruptions. Explosive eruptions. Ito yung, because of high gas content and as well as other factors such as yung magma composition, pwedeng magkaroon ng mas explosive na pagputok. And I would like to mention yung tatlo na madalas nyo naririnig pagka may activity: phreatic, phreatomagmatic, explosive. Explosive magmatic or plinian, pwede rin. Phreatic is hydrovolcanic. Ibig sabihin may involvement ng surface water, yung magma. So parang kawali lang na nag-iinit and then lalagyan mo ng water, di ba? Wiwisik siya. So that's phreatic. Walang pang talagang lumalabas na bagong magma. Phreatomagmatic, may magma na lumabas together with yung water, groundwater. That's why explosive din siya. And of course, we have yung what we call plinian, yung totally magmatic na talagang huge volume of magma has to get out and erupt kasi it's time for her to erupt. So, phreatomagmatic, this is just an example. It's a violent eruption. May contact yung water with the magma, and so it could be voluminous. And this is an old photo in 1966 Taal, and you can see this gray cloud, punong-puno na yan ng ash kasi because of yung efficiency of yung explosiveness, nadudurog yung mga bato and nagiging fine ash or fine rocks. And yung nung iba, in-explain ko na to nung January, yung ashfall. Actually, hindi naman talaga siya parang akala abon na nasunog na puno or kahoy. When in fact, very, very fine fragmented materials because of because of the explosiveness. So hindi talaga siya yung ashfall na terminology natin, very, very fine mga bato yan na durug na durug na durug. Pwede rin coarse, pwedeng parang sand, parang ganun. So yung mga malalaking pagputok, what we call plinian, an example will be Pinatubo. And I think your parents, kasi mga bata kayo, mga 20, 25, 22, 20, baka 18 pa yung iba sa inyo. 1991, Ito yung memorable sa most of your parents probably. And very explosive. Big eruption that created this what we call ash column or mushroom cloud. And this generated what you will see later as pyroclastic flows. Ito yung very dangerous type ng eruption. Okay? I'll show you an example of a phreatic event. This is in Ontake in Japan. Unfortunately, may mga tourists, pagka phreatic kasi most of the time, it's hard. It's hard to capture sa monitoring. And so it erupted suddenly. I don't know if you've heard about this. And so you can see the cloud. And nasa taas tong mga tourists na to. Ano? And so that's why sa atin, di ba, we are very careful with the permanent danger zone. Because we don't want people get in certain areas. Okay, there. You can hear the fine ash overcoming the tourists. Unfortunately, there were lots of casualties. I don't remember the exact number. Kaya lang medyo madami talaga naging casualties that had to be recovered, no, the bodies. So, when we talk of pyroclastic flows or surges, ito yung mga medyo naririnig-rinig nyo very recently. These are actually mixture of very fine ash and fragmented rocks that are ejected rapidly, and it's full of hot gases. So it's very dangerous because the speed is from 30 to 700. Obviously, you cannot outrun. That's why once makita natin na may activity ang volcano, we actually implement agad, sinasabi sa LGUs, di ba? May LGUs have their identified areas na hindi na dapat papasok ang mga tao. It's because of this type of eruption. It's one of the it's the deadliest of all in volcanic hazards. This one is in Taal in 1965, 66, and this one is of course Mayon volcano. And you can see the darker the cloud is, the mas marami sang ash and mas dangerous siya. So this is Pinatubo. Again, just showing you the slide. Kasi etong voluminous materials na to, this is Mayon 84 and this is one of the classic photos na nalo to sa Inquirer in 1991. You cannot outrun this, and everything na dadaanan niya since mainit siya, mababurn or mababury. Very recently sa Taal, ito yung pre-eruption. Itsura ng Taal, green, all the vegetation. And then after the eruption, which happened here in this crater, main crater, you can see how the surface have changed because of the ash that covered the whole island. This is an example, Sen, just to show you yung difference of kapag pumutok yung vulkan, etong mga white areas, ito yung mga pyroclastic flow deposits, and ito na siya right now. Okay. This is in 1990. In the Philippines, ilan lang to? I cannot write everything because there will be like a lot. For Taal, 1754, these are just the most devastating, but there's like more than 30 eruptions na recorded, no, that we know of. 1911, 1965. Mayon, 1814, 1897, 1993. Ito yung may casualties. Malamang hindi pa kayo pinapanganak lahat. But more recent, of course, in 2014, I think. And then we have Hibok-Hibok in Camiguin. This is very significant for us. Unahin natin si Pinatubo in 91. After that, so far she's quiet. 1951 Hibok-Hibok is the reason why we have the Commission on Volcanology in 1952. Just a brief history. And yung convol na yan yung naging FIVOC noong 1984 na naging FIVOX ngayon since 1986. Because before 1951, wala naman pang national agency that really monitors volcanic eruptions. No? So that's the story of FIVOX. Here you can see yung casualties. Malalaki yan ay mga pagputok na yan. So ano yung mga panganib, hazards? These are phenomena or processes that would pose potential threat and negative impact. to man, property, and the environment during a volcanic eruption. This is Mayon. You can see the you can see the black area here. Dinaanan niya ng pyroclastic flow, which tells you kung gaano ka-dangerous ang pyroclastic flow event. And this is a Mayon eruption of 2000. Okay, madaming iba-ibang hazard. We'll try to run through this pero hindi lahat as detailed. No? Just to give you an idea. Ashfall. Once you have this ash column, as what you saw nung January, puno-puno ng ash yan. And through time, because of gravity, because of yung explosivity niya, no? Pataas muna. And then after some time, suspended yung ash particles. At some point, the wind will blow. Dadalhin niya yung mga materials anywhere. And kaya unang nakaramdam Tagaytay, medyo malalaki na mga piraso ng bato. But then yung mga Manila, Cavite area, you have finer ash until northern part, mas ma-fine ash pa. No? So the dispersal depends on the prevailing wind direction. And noong January, papunta towards Manila and farther north of Manila, yung ash. And the result can be very devastating. For case of Pinatubo, the ash fall was really very heavy within say Pampanga, Zambales area na umabot siya na more than a meter. And so what happened is that it was so heavy, so the roof actually collapsed in many parts in Pampanga and Zambales and even Tarlac. Could result to damages sa infrastructure. Dangerous din siya kasi any suspended ash can actually pag nahigop yan ng engine ng eroplano, kaya kailangan minomonitor sila, pwedeng tumigil yung engine and yung aircraft could fail. So, delikado yon. And of course, if you inhale, this is very abrasive kasi it's silica. Hindi siya maganda sa lungs. Okay? Sa Taal, this is what we see now. What we saw last January. May mga nag-collapse din na roof, covered ng ash. And of course, ito yung kapal ng ash that was observed. This is in Tagaytay, ha? But this one is in Agoncillo, in Boso-Boso, Agoncillo, Batangas. And lava flow. I've discussed earlier, these are incandescent rivers. Very slow moving. And iba-ibang klase din. This is Taal in 1969. Nung pumutok siya, no? So may lava flow din yung Taal. But for this particular eruption, wala po tayong nakitang ganyan now. This is an example of ano ba talaga itsura ng lava flow sa Mayon. Ayan. This is a shot. Malayo yung camera nito. Just to show you this whole thing here. That's a very slow moving lava from Mayon volcano. And I need to remember anong year to. Dr. Raymond Maximo would probably know more. Okay, so we're actually like trying to see the crater part. Okay, there. So, ganun na itsura ng lava flow ng Mayon sa atin. Ano? It's dark because siyempre solidified na yung surf, but actually sa loob niyan, pwedeng incandescent pa rin siya kasi umuusad pa yung lava eh. Okay? So, this is Mayon. And ganyan siya. Pagka sa photo, yung nakikita nyo na nagbabaga, yan, that's a lava flow. And then kapag tumigas na siya, eto na siya. Actually, this one big lava flow, I think this after mga 2000, Raymond will know more because I remember 1993 better. Sa malapitan, ganito siya. This is a person, so for scale, and this is how thick the lava flow is. Eto, tao din yan. I hope you can see my cursor. And you can see it's blocky. And so this is how thick a lava flow ng Mayon. This is 2000. Blocky lava flow from Mayon volcano. So can you imagine, anything, kung meron kayong field scrap dito, useless na. Wala ka nang babalikan na lupa kung saan ka nagtanim. Okay? Pwede rin because it's hot and incandescent, it can actually burn whatever daanan niya. Similar to this. Okay? It can, for so long, wala nang gamit yung land. Bumalik tayo sa pyroclastic density currents. This is just to show you anong itsura. This is from Batutara. This is in Indonesia. They have a good shot. They have a camera sa crater to monitor. Meron na rin tayong mga ganyan, no? Yung sa Taal natin na destroy after, but it was able to monitor. So for this one, you will see that it will have a big explosion and then it will generate a pyroclastic flow. This is to remind you you're not supposed to go inside danger zones pag dineclare ng LGU. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. And then you'll see the pyroclastic flow rolling down very fast, the slope. And I used to show this sa communities around Taal. Kasi it shows you that the pyroclastic flows can actually travel across water. Okay? And so mahirap talaga kapag inabutan ka ng ganyang klase ng pagputok. Okay. Because once na-engulf ka niyan, ma-inhale mo yung fine ash and that is not good and it's hot. Okay. Ano yung pwede mangyari? Wait. Okay. Sa mayon, because of yung energy, actually hindi lang burned, mapapansin nyo nagbagsakan yung mga puno in certain direction. Yun yung direction kung saan papunta yung pyroclastic flow. Sa Taal, this is 1911, you can see the whole island was damaged. And dahil wala pa tayong monitoring before, actually maraming maraming nandun sa pulo ang actually na naging casualty during the time. For Pinatubo, what happened? Pagkatapos ng pagputok, natabunan ang malaking portion and area. And lahat ng tumabon dito, the pyroclastic flow materials, magiging lahar naman later on. 1951, these are old photographs sa archive ng PHIVOX and you can see very devastating. Pasensya na sa photos. These are just to show you the impact, why you shouldn't even think of going inside identified hazard areas because you can see the burned vegetation and even mga casualties. Okay. Same with Taal in 1911. After the eruption, may mga nagpunta to document. This is actually published in 1912 National Geographic issue about the Taal volcano 1911 eruption. And the base surge, ito yung kinakatakutan ng lahat na from the island, this cloud can actually cross over and affect the coastal communities ng Taal Lake. For this January eruption, wala tayong nakitang ganyan. But, it's something to be worried about. Pagka natapos ang pagputok ng pyroclastic flows, may mga deposits. And when umulan siya, katulad ngayon, umuulan sa labas, kapag umulan sa itaas ng bulkan, the water would mix with the materials, the pyroclastic materials, and that would create lahars. Lahars are rapidly flowing thick mixture of volcanic sediments and water, and normally by rainfall. In some other parts like mga snow-capped na volcano in other parts of the world, pwede rin magkaroon ng lahar. May dalawang klase. Pag malapot siya, ang tawag doon ay debris flow. And mas marami from the liquid or the water. Pwede ring mas marami naman yung water kesa sa sediments and so it's called hyperconcentrated flow or mas malabnaw siya. In any case, both are hindi maganda because it affects the community as what you will see here. This is Pampanga area post-1991 Pinatubo eruption. And just to show you some impacts again, burial. This is in Sacobia Bamban River. Ito yung bahay. After the event, ito na lang. So, can you imagine how thick yung tumabon sa ating lugar dito? And, di ba, of course, the residents would have difficult time to recover from this. And then, pwede rin mag-block ang mga lugar, magkaroon ng katulad nito sa Zambales, na-cut off and na-isolate yung communities kasi na-block yung tributary and then nagkaroon ng flooding. Or pwede rin long-term siltation and flooding. Similar happening Pampanga, kaming sediments yung pinatubo, nag-clog ngayon yung mga river system natin kasi ang lalabasan lang niya etong portion na to. Unlike sa Zambales side, diretso sa dagat. So, nandun yung clog system. And then, of course, may mga volcanic gases to be worried about like carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And we monitor this. We have monitoring system, sulfur dioxide. And another hazard will be fissuring or yung pagbitak. Bakit nagbibitak? Kapag karoon ng taas ng magma, pwedeng karoon ng pagbitak sa space. And what happened in and malakas na pagyandigang kasabay niyan, di ba? So, it's been documented for Taal in 1911. And ngayong January 2020, may mga nakita rin tayo mga fissures in Talisay and Agoncillo. And another is debris avalanche. Ito naman, yung vulkan, sa sobrang dami ng magma na ipuputok niya, yung buong isang side niya, pwede magkaroon ng malaking landslide. Like this side, magkakaroon ng pagputok and then pwedeng sumama lahat dyan. And it could create what we call hammock topography. And actually, meron tayong examples of this, no? Yung gantong klase, like Iriga and in Canlaon, in Negros. So ganyan, this is St. Helens. Wala kasi tayong historical example, so I'm using this just to show you what it would do. Like this volcano, when it erupts, does this side would have a huge landslide and would create this huge gap sa vulkan. And lastly, tsunami. Pwede magkaroon ng tsunami lalo na kung yung vulkan ay may katabing body of water. And pwede rin kung ang vulkan ay submarine, underwater, and then pumutok siya, so it would displace yung water above. Or may pyroclastic flow materials na lalabas and pupunta sa body of water. Or yung landslide. And this is an example for Taal because of the, say, yung 1911 and 1965, since yung surges mo ay dumaan nga sa tubig, magkakaroon din siya ng impact on the other side dun sa mga coastal communities, lakeshore communities natin. And nagkaroon ng pagtaas din ng water. And binabantayan din dapat natin yan. Because magkakaroon din ng flooding, it would be more difficult for people to evacuate. So what happens? May vulkan, magkakaroon ng pagputok, and then madi-displace ng pyroclastic materials yung water, and so that creates water disturbance or what we call volcanic tsunami. I think this one is Krakatau, yung anak Krakatau. You mentioned in your request alert levels. So these are actually very volcano specific. Ang alert level ni Bulusan kasi ay iba sa alert level. All are like 0 to 5, but the descriptions differ depende sa parameters or ano yung inoobserbahan sa mga bulkan. That would give us an idea kung anong klaseng activity yung ginagawa niya. So each monitor volcano will have its own alert level scheme. I'd like to direct you to our website if in case you would like to know, halimbawa, status ng ganyang bulkan. But you need to understand ano yung alert levels. Punta kayo sa FIVOX website sa volcano. And then pagdating sa volcano, hanapin yung alert levels. Sa alert level, ayan, may Bulusan, Hibok-Hibok, Canlaon, Mayon, Taal, Bunatubo. And then if you click that, lalabas dun yung anong volcano alert level scheme yung ginagamit. Kasi it shows actually 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 description of what is the alert level. And then, ano yung criteria, ano yung interpretation recommendation. Every LGU na may vulkan, actually, they are familiar with this alert level. And very, we are also like reviewing this para ma-improve pa. But the point is, ang mapapansin nyo dito, it's really a lot of parameters na minomonitor natin sa vulkan. And ano yung mapapansin nyo yung permanent danger zone, ang LGUs may ready preparedness plans na sila, and ano na dapat yung action na gagawin nila. Just so that for the information of all, as of 17 July, ito po yung alert levels. Alert level 1 sa Mayon, alert level 1 sa Bulusan since July 6, since July 17, alert level 1 sa Taal since 19 March, and alert level 1 sa Canlaon since 11 March. Minsan po napapansin namin may mga biglang kumakalat. I really would suggest you just check our FB kasi kung ano man po yung status ng vulkan, lindol, tsunami, dun po natin makikita or sa website. Okay? Verify mo natin. We have a lot of, for volcano, no, we have monitoring networks. We have 6 volcano observatories and marami minomonitor. Kumbaga sa doktor, hindi lang isang instrumento ginagamit natin, hindi lang para sa tibok ng puso. May iba pang nakakabit sa isang bulkan. For this case, aside from the 6 volcano observatories, we have 2 other volcanoes that are monitored with the seismic sensor. And ito yung typical na setup natin sa loob. May mga computers kasi binabato na yung data directly by radio and by satellite sa mga computers natin para mas madali yung monitoring. So, for us to be able to mitigate volcanic hazards, we need to have a good setup for monitoring and interpret this for how can we like give assessment and ano yung response. And this we need to work with the LGUs. We cannot control, if a volcano is about to erupt, but we can actually lessen the risk, and that is through planning. Like in its quiet times, dapat ito yung time na hindi tayo tumitigil sa pag-inform sa mga tao what they should be doing. And that should be helped by all the science that we have, maps, information dissemination, understanding behavior of volcanoes. And our geologists are, the ones working on trying to understand yung iba-ibang behavior ng mga bulkan. So pwede kasing when we monitor, what we want is to give at least yung short term, intermediate, makapagbigay tayo ng warning, whether it's weeks to months. Pahirap yung mabilisan, like phreatic events. Those are really very difficult. Even napansin nyo yung sa New Zealand na case, and even yung Antake, because those are phreatic events and hindi siya nakaka-capture ng instruments. But we rely for longer term, like nakikita natin dumadami yung paglindol, dumadami yung nag-i-increase yung acidity, ganyan. Lahat yan minomonitor. So multi-parameter, pwedeng geophysical, seismic, iba-iba pang instrument, pwedeng yung paggalaw ng bulkan, yung sinasabi nga nila yung kanina lang may report about yung ground deformation. Pwedeng geochemical, yung pag-measure ng gas, pwede rin yung temperatura, and pwede rin visual and sensory. So yung long term, if you study a volcano, ano ba yung eruption interval? Would it help? Nakakatulong ba? Maraming pwedeng pag-aralan. But it's difficult always. Really, kahit anong bulkan tingnan natin, iba-iba. So sa dami ng instrumento na yan, to help us understand and measure and monitor the condition of a volcano. No? So, ito yung sample. This is, let's see, Taal. This is what we have in our Talisay Station. Bukot Talisay Station. And then, may mga sensitive instruments tayo to monitor yung mga local na paglindol para sa bulkan. Ganito yung itsura. This is old. What we have now is nasa computer na, no? And yung sensitive instrument natin ito. And pwede rin na ground deformation. Minomonitor yung micromillimeter na pag-umbok ng bulkan. No? Pwede rin gas measurement. We have instrument to measure sulfur dioxide. We go around the volcano and measure the plume and get yung gas content. Kasi pagtataas ba o bababa, it tells us the activity of the volcano. Pwede rin direct measurement, get samples ng water and gas to monitor. This one you have to frequently monitor. But now actually we have good scientists sa office. They have designed something na yung data binabato na rin near real time para makuha sa station instead of daily getting the data. Kasi dangerous pumasok din sa loob ng crater. So, pwedeng precursors, earthquakes, dadami siya. Pwede may rumbling sound. Pwede rin increase ng temperature. Madami. Pwede rin magkaroon ng fissuring. Pwedeng sulfur odor. Or in some areas, make fish kill. Pero we have to be careful yung fish kill. Pwedeng iba yung reason kung ba't nagkakaroon ng fish kill or vegetation na nagda-dry up. And sa mayon, crater grow is something that is always observed. Again, if you want to know more about our materials that we use, helpful materials, go to FIVOX and publication. And then sa publication, volcano information materials. And then if you click that, lalabas lahat yung mga iba-ibang materials na available to guide you in case you are interested to do some work in certain areas na may bulkan. Some examples, posters about pagputok ng taal. Very specific yung mga materials natin. This one is in local language, I think Ilonggo and Cebuano for Canlaon volcano. So ito yung ginagamit natin doon. And then we also have general information about ano yung iba-ibang volcanic hazards and about ashfall preparedness. This one is in English and Filipino, but we also have, I think, Bicolano language na produced. And again, some more materials, posters about what to do during ashfall. Paano maglinis, paano linisin, how to prepare. And kasi I think ito yung helpful sa nyo for the next talk. So I'm trying to like give this. You can request for materials pala kay Mina or download sa website namin kasi available naman siya. And just to show you some information education activities that we have, exhibit, going to the field, giving lectures, and a lot of materials that people can use. And then of course, hazard maps. Hazard maps are prepared so that people can see which areas are more prone to pyroclastic flows or lava flows or ashfall. And it shows areas and help our planners to come up with their disaster risk reduction management plans or even for development plans. So it actually provides long-range guidelines for planning. Okay. And it's always important, as scientists and as part of the National Agency for Volcano, Earthquake, and Tsunami Monitoring, that we communicate the risk at the local level, like sharing all information. Our science will only like have yung real value niya if properly used. If you give information to people so that people will have all the right information for their decision making. Kasi, when you decide sa level ng communities, marami din silang factors that they need to consider. But it's always important if we share yung information and they have the knowledge to understand the hazards, like yung hazard maps, yung history ng lugar nila, yung experience ng kasama nila, and yung mga alert levels so that they can prepare. Because if we use properly this information, mas magiging maganda yung pagpaplano. Like for this case, have drills, and it's a lot of parang time involved and commitment of many people para remember, like a lot of disasters kaya siya nangyayari is because madalas yung matagal nang natapos nakakalimutan ng mga tao. And I think our role is always to remind people na ito mga to pwede pa ulit mangyari. And so that's why we always have to keep in mind na we need to be very prepared. Hindi yung kakalimutan natin. Okay. I think that's the end. If you need more information, ito po yung number namin. And I hope you enjoy this afternoon. Maraming salamat.
Headphones pa lang. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much po, Dr. Villegas, for that very informative presentation about volcanoes and its hazards. And I hope you guys learned the impacts of volcanoes, and despite their beauty, they can also be very deadly. Particularly, yung pyroclastic flows na sinasabi ni Doc Villegas, But if you want to outrun pyroclastic flows, the first thing you should know is that you cannot, right? You cannot outrun pyroclastic flows kasi masyado mataas yung speed nila, according to Doc Villegas. And also, this is also a gentle reminder for us to follow our LGUs. So as much as possible, we can avoid this, and syempre be vigilant always then. Okay, so now it is our time for opening of the forum of the questions. So if you have any questions, just feel free to open your mic, or if nahihiya kayo, you can just type it on the chat and I'll read them out aloud. Okay, so Doc Villegas po, may questions po tayo dito. So the first question po is, how long does it take daw for the lava flow to solidify?
Depende na. If you can see, if you observe, habang nagfo-flow siya, ibig sabihin may supply pa. And pagka incandescent siya, ibig sabihin molten. Once nakiging dark colored na siya, ibig sabihin tumitigas. But mapapansin nyo rin, it's just the surface, pero actually sa ilalim medyo may molten pa siya. So it depends. Sa mayon kasi, kahit tumigil na siya, I mean, nag-stop na siyang mag-move, no? Mainit pa rin siya for a long time. So, nandun pa rin temperature niya.
Okay, sana nasagot yung question mo, no? So for the second question, are there any ways that we can improve the monitoring of our volcanoes?
It's already like a lot of different parameters that are being monitored na. And our volcano monitoring network actually is always at par with ano man yung nasa international. But marami pang pwedeng, creativity of the science, like may bago, mas maliit na ngayon instrumento, all these things, part. But in terms of network, we already have a good network.
Okay po, thank you. So for the next question, naalala ko po noong eruption, umangat po ang alert levels from alert level 1 to alert level 4 that same day. Ganun po ba talaga parati kabilis yung progression ng isang eruption? And could
No.
we have anticipated it better?
No. Yan yung sinasabi namin. Each volcano would have its own different behavior. And for the case of Taal, it really told us, ganito ang gagawin ko. Like, in history, 1754 and 1965, similar. Kasi gabi, and then mabilisan, and 1911. And then natapos siya agad-agad. 1754 pala yung prolonged na umabot ng months. It's the 1911 and the 1965 that is very short period then. So sobrang escalated talaga yung activity niya. As opposed to say, halimbawa mayon, like 'di ba magde-declare, and then after yung prolonged waiting of people naman in evacuation yung issue doon. So it's a lot of social issues afterwards or during an ongoing event. Yeah.
Thank you po, no? So far wala na po tayong mga questions. But if there are still, meron po nagtanong, no? What other improvements and recommendations can we propose to the government in order to build safer homes and communities that are within range of volcanic eruptions po?
Yeah, we really have to have good grasp. And about our leaders, local leaders should have a good grasp of ano yung science part for the planning. Kasi development and preparedness should come together. We keep on developing, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we understand yung long-term and short-term risks involved. Ano yung mga areas that we can develop and ano yung dapat actually hindi din na-develop. Unfortunately, nauna yung development before yung understanding ng hazards. And I think marirealize mo yan. Yung mga ilog, bakit madaming tao dyan? Kasi in the past, that's where, that's the mode of, ang tawag dito, ng business. Diyan dumadaan, di ba? So, doon magde-develop. Sa vulkan, it's the same thing. Kasi doon yung matabang lupa, so maraming communities ang nagtatribe doon. So, nauna yan before yung understanding, and then puputok yung vulkan, and then what will people do? Now that we have a better understanding of things, it's really important na isama talaga sa pagpaplano.
Thank you so much po for answering our questions, no? Meron pa po last one, I think. Mayroon po bang volcano in our country na hindi mountain-shaped, and how different po yung eruption na pwedeng mangyari?
Yeah. Pwedeng small-scale eruption, pwedeng hindi. When I say hindi siya mountain-shaped, hindi lang siya yung typical na parang bundok na nakikita natin. We have like mga smaller, pero these are already like hindi naman active volcanoes eh. Small, low volcanoes ang tawag natin, mga tooth rings, mga ganyan.
Okay po.
Yeah.
Thank you so much po, no? I hope nasagot lahat ng questions niyo, guys, no? And thank you for that set of wonderful questions. And also, we would like to remind everyone that it is mandatory for the participants to answer this PVOX evaluation form that is linked in the Zoom and YouTube live stream chats right now. So, we'll send the link na lang. Ayan na. Okay. So I hope everyone will participate, no? And of course, thank you to Dr. Villegas for entertaining our audience's questions.
Thank you.
To cap off this segment of the program, we'd like to present the certificate of our recognition to our esteemed speaker. Um, we would like to uh, give the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Maria Maylene Martinez Villegas for lending her expertise as a resource speaker in the webinar entitled Silakbo, a Disaster Preparedness Webinar on Volcanic Emergencies, held on the 25th of September 2020 via Zoom. So, may picture taking po tayo, no? I'm not sure lang kung sino yung magpipicture, pero Cholo?
Hello, sige po. In 3, 2, 1. Ayan po. Isa pa po. 3, 2, 1. Ayan. Thank you po, ma'am.
Thank
Again,
you.
thank you po ulit.
Ayan. So, thank you po again to Dr. Villegas for lending their time to this webinar. Maraming salamat po. Thank you for teaching us about the effects, the dangers, and how we can mitigate these dangers of the volcano.
Thank you.
Sige po. So, to introduce our second speaker naman po, our second speaker earned his bachelor's degree in chemistry at the University of the Philippines Institute of Chemistry, IC, so in 1995, and became Doctor of Medicine at the University of East Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Medical Center in 2000. Specializing in sports medicine and rehabilitation, he is a pioneer in sports acupuncture. As an expert in disaster medicine, our speaker was a mission leader for a number of disaster response activities for calamities in the past decade, including the 2010 Typhoon Ondoy, 2013 Bohol earthquake, and 2014 Typhoon Yolanda. He also served as chairperson of the Disaster Management Committee of the UP Vanguard, Incorporated from 2014 to 2016. Among his other credentials, he is currently online medical director for the Emergency Medical Services. He is also director of the 124th Auxiliary Squadron of the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, Chairman and Training Center Director at the Santa Safety Institute Incorporated, and affiliate faculty in the UPD College of Science, teaching Science and Technology and Society, which is STS for short. Role of Medicine in STS, and History and Philosophy of Medicine. Wow, ang dami. So, sobrang accomplished ng next speaker natin. So, let us all welcome Dr. Rodrigo Angelo Ong.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction. And I actually enjoyed the lecture a while ago by Dr. Maylene. It reminded me of my JO 11 days back in UP. Now, it's just an interesting coincidence. I was in UP already when Mount Pinatubo erupted, and the first day of classes, actually, we thought we had snow, because our hair was full of gray or white ash. So we thought that the Philippines was snowing. All right. So for my talk today, I decided to give you one of my papers, which it is still up for review. It was a paper on observership, volunteer observers in the Taal volcano eruption recently. So it's based actually on a paper done in 1992 by De Los Reyes. So let's start. No? So the talk would mostly be on human resource, how people can help during volcanic eruptions. So it's timely because when Taal erupted, I immediately saw the opportunity to make a study, and I did a short survey in Taal, and I responded when Taal was active. No, I was actually there doing medical relief. So just a disclosure, this lecture is based on a paper which I authored with a basis on science policy. Right? So, yung pambungad natin is just a reminder to us that disasters really do occur frequently in our country. We have typhoons, we have earthquakes, we have volcanic eruptions. Name it, we've got it. We even have droughts, and of course flooding. So, the 2018 Global Risk Report ranks us high, in the top five among the countries with highest risk for disaster. And the country is repeatedly hit by extreme weather events and have quote unquote no time to fully recover, they said. No? So because of our frequent visits with disaster, specifically here in typhoons, no, there is no time to fully recover, according to German Watch. Now, according to the Global Risk Index, these are the top five risk factors in the Philippines. We have economic, political, uh, heat waves, cyber attacks, and destruction of natural ecosystems. And in the short term, they see mostly environmental. If you see the green, no, it's mostly environmental. Right. The World Economic Forum said climate change is striking harder and more rapidly than many expected. No? I put this here, the topic of climate change, because I believe people should adapt and people should be able to know how to respond and how to help each other, because our country uh, is frequented by a lot of these disasters, no? Every year. All right, let's skip that. All right, so here we go. No? Science and disaster. The role of science in disaster, no, must include environmental, social, health, engineering, education, communication, as well as economic factors. No? Direct engagements with stakeholders, such as the community itself, the barangay, the LGU, is a way to ensure that the resources reflect the needs of the community. Without this one, any assistance to any LGU or any locality would be a waste of time and resources. Now, we have to engage with stakeholders. We have to engage with the community. Now, when because this is a community driven activity, the community knows what resources they need, right? And scientific information dissemination must be translated properly by the community stakeholders to their language and dialect. And this is part and parcel of the paper which I wrote. Let's review first. No, why are we studying all these disaster risk reduction modules for the last 15 years? No, in UP we have been doing earthquake drills. We have been doing a lot of lectures and workshops and seminars on disasters. A lot of training in disasters. It is because the United Nations framework for action, in this case, done in Sendai, Japan, in the year 2015, no, published a framework for action. It says that one of the guiding principles of the UN framework is an all of society engagement, which is non discriminatory, accessible, and empowering, which means we have to include the participation of all the stakeholders in the community. In order for society and community to imbibe the lessons learned from understanding these risks, they must be adequately informed. Communication here is paramount. No? Actually, it was mentioned a while ago by Dr. Mylene that the community I recall the posters which she posted. She showed you. No, these are tools to convey DRM. DRM principles to the communities in a very simplified and easily understood manner. Government should engage volunteers. Now, this is the mainstay of my paper. We should engage community volunteers. No? When I began the UP Red Cross movement back in the early 1990s, I actually wanted that to have the whole community of UP, engage with volunteers in the locality which they belong to. For example, a group of students coming from Bicol, would engage on DRM activities in Bicol. So the intention was to create knowledgeable, educated, well-informed volunteers within the UP community. All right. We have a very, very strong history of helping each other when it comes to disasters. No, we have the Bayanihan spirit, a spirit of kinship and brotherhood, wherein every Filipino would want to help each other. Is this still true today? Do we still have the Bayanihan spirit? No, when I was younger, when I grew up in the province in Cagayan de Oro, I would see this familiar scene here where people would carry nipa hats on their shoulders, no. Ngayon ang nakikita natin yung mga nipa hat na nilalagay na sa truck, no. But still the bayanihan system, I still see them sometimes when I visit provinces during disaster times, no? Here we have people helping stranded motorists. It's still within our culture to help each other, no. Now when it comes to disasters naman, no, it comes to volcanic eruptions, how well do we apply the Bayanihan spirit? Is it still communal work towards saving each other and saving the community, or is it one man for himself kind of thing, no? Or one man for his family only? No, tingnan natin uh, how people nowadays imbibe the Bayanihan spirit. So when you talk about volunteers, we talk about people already in the community, no? So community involvement is vital because they are the first people to respond to disasters. Although they are victims themselves, no, people will really go out of their way to help other people, especially their neighbors, their relatives nearby. No, citizen participation is vital to disaster risk reduction and resilience. No? So we must include the narratives of the community, the stories of the community, how they help, and how they would like to be helped. So whenever we go out, yeah, well, I'm talking to our future leaders here, the youth, no, especially those who are active in the uh, CSR or actively doing civic work, no, to engage in your community, no, because they know how to help their own communities. All right. Management of volunteers. When we go or enter into a community, is especially those coming from massive disaster, we must be able to open our doors to informal volunteers. No, those who don't know anything but want to help. No? So they may include training of informal personnel as time permits. So whenever we enter a community, for many of you in the UP Red Cross movement here, no, when you do community missions or medical missions, no, including modules on disaster helps, especially those coming from frequently hit typhoons or those near volcanoes. No? All right, so we go to the case of a Taal volcano. No? So on January 20, an active volcano, Taal, erupted, spewing steam and ash. On March 20th, 2 months afterwards, a survey was conducted. So my team and myself, we went to Talisay, Batangas. That's within the danger zone. I think it's the 14-kilometer zone. It actually has it's in the lake side of the Taal Lake. No? So we went there and we did a short survey and participating in the survey. Of course, this was done ethically with the permission of the local government. No? So we had 40 male respondents and 53 female respondents aging from 19 to 73 years old. No? And here's what we saw, no? So when we asked the questions, no, gaano ka kahanda na maka kumbaga gaano ka kahanda sa isang disaster, no? So we listed some of the country's worst disasters: tsunamis, bagyo, lindol, baha, sunog, ulan, at bulkan. No, surprisingly, no, people in Talisay, Batangas, very near Taal, were ready with ulan, baha, and bagyo. No, I was surprised. No, and Vulcan is not really well. It's probably number four or number five here in this graph. No, but they are more ready for disasters with heavy rains, flooding, and typhoons. No? So the community disaster readiness at that time in this year, no, early 2020, is actually for weather disturbances. Now, when we asked if you would like to volunteer in DRM or HADR, no, how would you like to volunteer? No, most of them said they would like to go to the barangay, and report fallen trees or damaged infrastructures. No, the second one is to alert the authorities, whether it be the city hall, the police, or the firemen. No? And thirdly, they would like to collect information, the number of casualties, the number of homes destroyed, the number of bridges destroyed. No, so these top three items here in a volcanically active community, no, is how they would like to be, how they would like to engage in DRM. No? So alerting, the barangay, no, and collecting information. No? I included here joining trainings and posting on Facebook. No, they don't seem to be as responsive as actively going to the LGUs and reporting to the authorities. No? So disaster information communication, when there is a disaster, how do you receive information, and how do you um, share the information? No? So if you see the Taal volcano already erupting, no, do you report it yourself, no, to your loved ones, to your neighbors, and then everyone gets alerted? Let's see. No, the top one here is to talk to their relatives. So kapag may nangyaring sakuna or calamity or disaster, no, ang una lang kakausapin yung kailang kamag-anak. And this is, of course, culturally, of course, this is what is expected. No, we are closely knit community or society, and we would like to see our relatives free from harm. So kapag meron tayong nakitang kalamidad o disaster, no, we would like to share the information with our loved ones. No, secondly, they get information or they share information through cell phone, and thirdly, they get information from the barangay. No, all right. Social media is not really used there that much for DRM activities. No, in fact, during the Taal volcano eruption in 2020, when we asked them, did social media help in disseminating information such as where the evacuation centers are, what are the needs of the evacuation centers, is everyone there in the evacuation center safe? No, they did not use any social media. So when we go to the communities and help, no, we also have to understand the culture of the community. In this case, no, mas manual sila, no, mas they would like to see action by going to the barangay, talking to people, no, rather than posting on social media. Now, partners and stakeholders who are the commonly seen and most, I said here, no, sino ang pinaka nakikita nyo tumutulong sa disaster? No, family members are number one. No, the AFP second, Coast Guard third. No? Why Coast Guard? Nalayo naman sa dagat yan. Coast Guard kasi is also very involved in the Taal Lake search and rescue. No, kapag kung merong hiker na stranded, no, on his way down to the lake, no, the Coast Guard always called to help. No? All right. Now, if we break down the way people or the citizens would like to help in terms of gender roles, no, there is a stark difference, no. So yung mga kalalakihan, ang gusto nilang paraan ng pagtulong ay mag-report sa barangay or sa LGU, no. They would like to go to the authorities, here you go, LGU and barangay, to help, and sila gusto nilang sumali sa training. This is encouraging because as Filipinos, no, we're always very inquisitive, no, but sometimes we don't have the luxury of time to join training programs for the barangay, no. But here in a community which is ready for baha, for heavy rains, no, it's encouraging to see that they are very much willing to be trained in search and rescue and in first aid for volcanic eruptions here, no? Sumali sa training. Sa mga kababaihan, ang pinakagusto nila ay yeah, mag-ano din, mag-report sa barangay. Pero ito ang mas nakikita natin sa mga kababaihan, no? They would like to collect more data, no? And sila siguro ang mas may alam sa mga intricacies ng community kasi sila talaga yung ilaw ng tahanan at ilaw ng komunidad, no? So alam nila kung sino ang mga pamilya na ang nasa danger area or dangerous area, no. So they would like to collect information, no. This is with stark difference to sa mga kalalakihan na gusto na talaga nila magpa-train rather than to collect information, no. So when we talk about community engagement in gender roles, no, nakikita natin that there are roles which yung mga kababaihan are really good at, and meron din roles where yung mga kalalakihan would like to be involved in, no. So may strength either way, no. So and they complement each other. So ito yung sinasabi natin about cultural the role of DRM in culture, no. So when we enter community to help, no, it would also be, it would make sense that women will be given these tasks and men will be given these tasks. So here, no, 97% of men, no, and 90% of women said they are willing to be involved in DRM uh, activities. This tells us, or this told me that people are willing to be trained, willing to volunteer. No, now remember that as I go through my next few slides. So willing sila magpa-volunteer. No? So men would prefer going to barangay to alert authorities, no, and to attend training. Sinabi ko rin kanina, and women would like to report damages, collect data, no, and report to proper authorities in that order. No? All right. So I mentioned before that there was a study written and published by De Los Reyes in 1992. Ito yung kanyang ito yung kanyang study, no. And it was a volunteer observer program piloted in Mayon and Taal volcanoes during the 1980s. This is very interesting, no. It's a way to make the community more active, no, in DRM sa mga volcanic areas, so towns in volcanic areas, no. So simple parameters were listed for citizens to record, such as crater glow, rumbling of the ground, amoy, ano yun, yung rotten eggs or sulfur odor, ground changes in water, no. So the program goal is aimed to empower communities, no? The second aim was to educate them, and third, para magkaroon sila ng proactiveness or proactive measures in their own safety, no? I remind you na ginawa ito sa Mayon at sa Taal, no? Maganda ang kanilang programa, no? So they went into the communities in Taal in the 1980s at tinuruan sila yung mga communities around Taal what to look for, no? Steam, changes in the ground, no? Unusual changes in lake water, yung mga fish kill, yung namamatay na isa, lumulutang na lang na isda, no? Sulfur smell, like yung sinabi kong smell of rotten eggs, no? And they even have mga infographics such these to support their training, no? So nakalagay dito, no, yung pangalan ng observer or citizen volunteer, the name of the barangay, and ito yung mga ano, check lang nila, is the intensity of steam strong, moderate, or weak, no, and so on and so forth. No? So ito yung flow chart nila, no? So there are stakeholders involved, no? Yung ordinary citizens, they would observe the OCD, the DOST, Office of the President. So yung report na ito, umaabot sa Office of the President, no? Sinasubmit yan sa kanila, no? So ito yung paano sila mag-monitor ng activity ng bulkan, no? So ang ganda, no? So citizens are actively the force multipliers of FIVOX, no, ang ganda, no. So the training was such that the data that they collect are relevant to the scientists that analyze them, no. So the behavior of Taal residents, this is interesting, no. So after all that training in the 1980s, no, after all that lectures and workshop in the 1980s, napakaganda. It actually made the citizens sort of seismologists already, and experts in volcanic eruptions and in disaster risk management, no. So ano nangyari sa training na yan? Did it cascade from the 1980s, na cascade ba sa present to 2020? Tingnan natin, no? So after the sudden eruptions, residents were evacuated within hours of the initial blast. So tama, no? So they're very proactive, no? Within hours na evacuate na sila. Days after the evacuation, residents were reported to defy orders to stay away from the 14-kilometer danger zone. And when interviewed, kasi gusto nila ma-check yung kanilang alagang hayop, yung mga livestock nila, no, yung kanilang alagang aso or pusa, no. So with all that, let me just go back here. With all the training that was done, to uh, to make the community aware, to make them proactive, to make them more resilient, no. With all of that done, no, after about ilang years ba yon? 2 decades, no, 2.5 decades, no? Parang nakalimutan na nila ang lessons na 'yon, no? So, yes, they were evacuated, but after a few days, bumalik sila despite being told to stay away, no? So, disaster risks and hazards must be well communicated to the community. It actually was in the 1980s with the study of De Los Reyes. No, it was science based, it was relevant, it was culture inclusive. In fact, yung pag-training nila was in English and in Tagalog. No, it has to be gender sensitive. It was proactive. No, they made the study and they made the training such that there is active observation of the activities in Taal, no? Siguro ang nawala lang doon ay yung consistency in the engagement with the community, no? And the citizen participation, no? We must invest in citizen volunteers. So we must continue to engage them, no? To engage with them. No? So I think this is my last slide, no? With the volunteer management, no? This is really the meat of the matter when it comes to DRM and communities. No? We must give them relevant information. We must give them information which is for them urgent, information for them useful. No, at the core of volunteer management is our leadership. No, kayong mga kabataan. No, kayo talaga ang mag-manage ng volunteers and manage ng DRM in the future. No, and to do that, you must master community support. You must lead in the communication campaigns. No, and you must inspire the community to have active communication so that we can sustain, no, have consistent engagement and sustained community DRM involvement. No, so with that, I think it's my last slide. With that, my final lesson, my final words for this talk will be: we are actually we are in a pandemic, another disaster. No, community engagement is part of the narrative. No, every community would have its own nuances when it comes to response and when it comes to the number of cases in COVID-19. No? As with volcanic eruptions, no, we have volcanoes who are active all over the country, as you've seen with Dr. Mylene slide. No? And for us to have greater resilience, for us to be more responsive, we need to share our knowledge. We need to communicate science, and we need to make citizens more active in their own communities. No? Hence, we have volunteer engagement. And the lessons learned from the 1980 study of De Los Reyes, no, and my study now in 2020 says that we must continually engage with them. No, the disaster in Taal, actually maswerte din naman. There was massive destruction, no. Pero kung pupunta ka doon sa Batangas, in the communities near Taal, about several weeks afterwards, no, nung tumahimik ang Taal volcano, makikita mo talaga na bumubangon agad ang Taal, ang mga Taal residents, no, those living around the crater lake. No? So it's testament to our resilience. It is testament to our bayanihan spirit. No, now all we have to do is inject science into it, no, to inject knowledge and improved communications. So let me stop my slide here. So I'd like to thank all of you for listening. Hopefully you've learned from my little study. No, bago pa lang ang study na yan, is still up for publication. It's still up for review pala for publication. So thank you very much for listening, and congratulations to the organizers of this activity for giving the audience a very good platform for learning about DRM.
And so thank you po, Doc Butch, for that. Thank you po, Doc Butch, for that very informative insight on the functions and dangers of a volcano. Sorry. So, very valuable breakdown pala ng disaster preparedness protocols, like in the times of volcanic emergency. Kung hindi niyo po alam, si Doc Butch po ay isa sa mga original founders ng UP Red Cross Youth, and it is really an honor to have him speak about disaster preparedness kasi this perspective of Doc Butch comes from the idea of implementing first aid rin. So as we can see, there are a lot of things that go into the disaster risk preparation. Events such as the Taal eruption show the importance of a well-prepared and properly communicated disaster risk management, lalo na sa Pilipinas. So knowing all of that, we are now opening the forum for questions. We can start po with the first question na naitanong. Andrew here asks, a lot of us here in the audience are currently undergrad students. How could college students like us volunteer and be more involved with our communities and help with disaster management? Are there agencies and or organizations we can approach?
Yes, join the UPRCY. That's one, no? But you heard a while ago, Dr. Mylene said that you can download information, posters, billboards, and printable materials for you to send to your communities. No, government agencies really do have Department of Health, DOST, FIVOX. No, they have community engagement programs. No, so if your organization would like to disseminate information, no, you can get in touch with these agencies. No? Now, if you'd like to be more proactive in this DRM, disaster risk management, and HADR, no, you can join the Red Cross, of course, or of course the UP Red Cross Youth, no, or any cause-oriented organizations, no, which do a lot of medical missions and relief missions on a regular basis. No? But our engagement, no, regardless of where we help, no, our engagement actually kahit nakatiting lang ang ating time na binigay or kahit konti lang ang ating mga donations, no, that means a lot to somebody else, no. The one can of kunyari, the one can of sardines that you give that you give will put a smile to a family who is crippled by disaster, no? So it all starts from wanting to help, no? With regards to where you would like to give your time, talent, and treasures, no, or to volunteer, no, government agencies do have avenues for you to help, no, but student organizations also, like a lot here in UP, lalo na UP Red Cross.
Ayan, no, so Andrew, we hope that answers your question. Yung susunod po na tanong ay galing kay Alex po. So, delikado po ba maging volunteer if you have not undergone formal training or the like na related sa disaster at hand?
Okay, that's a nice question, no? Kasi when I started the UPRCY, wala talaga akong alam, no? And when we did our DRM work, we were learning on the fly, no? Now, on hindsight, now that was quite dangerous, no? Kasi kapag mag-responde tayo sa isang baha o sa isang area na umuusbok yung usok ng vulkan, no? Or the volcano is very active, we need to know the dangers, no? In many disaster areas that I've been to, no, whenever a volunteer group begin to come in, they are first briefed by the OCD or the NDRMC, no. So may briefing when you check in to the LGU to tell them that you want to volunteer, no, they would give you a briefer, no. The OCD and the RMC, meron silang point person to which you can get information kung saang area ang kailangan, no, ano ang kailangan nila sa area na yon, at kung saan ka kailangan, no, kung saan ikaw and your goods and all your tools will help, no? So basic training, first aid, of course, a little DRM, no, would be very very handy in ensuring your own safety, no. We need to do this, no, so we can do more in a safe manner, no. Of course, ayaw natin na kayo naman ang maging biktima, na tumutulong na kayo tapos kayo pa ang maging biktima. So well, webinars such as this help, no, pero when you want to volunteer, whether in a church group, in a social civic society organization, no, training is of course a very very big part of your joining or of your entry, no? So take advantage of those.
Ayan, thank you po for that answer. So, yung susunod naman po na tanong, ang dami. Susunod naman po na tanong ay, what plans can we make that will take into consideration the livelihood of the locals during a disaster? It is hard to blame them for coming back to check on their livestock as it is their source of income during their normal days. This is a question from EP po.
That's true, no? Syempre, actually, kahit ngayon naman sa pandemya, nakikita natin yan, people really want to go back to work, no? Dahil sa lockdown natin, economy has stopped and people are demanding, or actually they want to go back to work, no? Now, when it comes to the Taal situation at that time, no, it's really human life first, no, the community first, and livelihood later, no? Kasi syempre, what good is your money when you're dead, no? So siguro moving forward from this, learning from this, no, management of your livestock, no. So kapag mag-evacuation ka, you must also have a way to save your livestock, no. Ang pinaka problema lang naman doon for many that we interviewed ay yung pagkain ng mga livestock nila, no. They didn't want to evacuate them kasi wala naman silang pagdadalhan ng mga alagang hayop nila. Ang pinaka problema nila yung pagkain, no. Gusto lang pakainin kasi after a week of being in the evacuation center, they said medyo gutom na yung mga alaga nila. Kaya lang, one interesting thing that we found out, that pagdating nila doon, yung mga hayop nila were very much alive and kicking. And parang naghanap sila ng sariling paraan na kumuha ng pagkain, no? So, parang at that time, nung interview namin sila, they were laughing. It was almost like a joke na they went out of their way to go to the danger zone to look for their alagang hayop. Pagdating nila doon, buhay na buhay yung kanilang mga alagang baboy, yung alagang manok nila. Of course, some were lost already. Some, there were a lot who died and perished in the ashfall and in the many namatay nung nag-rumble yung ground at yung mga these animals have yung iba siguro weak ang kanilang heart, no? So kailangan din, no, we must preserve human life, save human life before we try to save the livelihood nila, no? Livelihood will always come as long as we're still alive, no? So human lives first.
Ayun po. So, after that, may question pa po from Therese. So, how is the progress in the Philippines regarding making DRRM gender inclusive, since gender roles have been emphasized to be important in planning for disaster preparedness?
Actually, it is integral. Did you know that those who officially, when a family is to receive a donation, whether in cash or in kind, no, it is the mother. Siya dapat ang tatanggap ng ayuda, ng tulong, unless hindi niya kaya or unless kunyari kailangan niya alagaan yung mga bata, then the father will help. The father will be the one to accept these, no? That's an old it's an old practice na. Actually sa mga disaster relief missions ko, yung mga pumipila, marami din mga lalaki pero karamihan babae kasi sila talaga ang binibigyang priority ng barangay to give donation. Sila dapat ang tatanggap, no. And the the tasks that I mentioned before, which were gender role inclusive, no, yung collecting data, reporting to the authorities, they dapat ito ay ma-inculcate ng ating society, no, na there are roles which women are really excellent at, no, and there are roles of course for men because of brute strength, sila yung nagtatanggal ng mga block sa daan, 'di ba? Sila nagre-repair ng bahay, no, because of their physique, no. For women, no, ang kanilang ay yung tahanan, yung bahay at komunidad, no, and the community is very very much something for women, no. So yung pag-aalaga ng mga bata, like I've seen before in Marawi, no, yung mga kababaihan sa isang evacuation center, gumawa sila ng nag-organize sila ng daycare para sa mga bata so that the women and the can take care of other stuff, no. So ganon ang dynamics, and we've had that naman in our society, no. Hindi lang na-publicize or hindi lang clear talaga, pero automatically they go into the niche tasks na para sa kanila.
Okay, sige po. Ito na po yung last question ngayon from Lance San Juan. Are there government initiatives for disseminating information on DRRM? How is it its current state, if ever, and how can we help to improve it?
Okay. With regards to community engagement, no, the agencies involved, such as the FIVOX, the DENR, no, and all the other agencies, no, they are responsible for the information, the science, no. The DSWD is in the delivery of goods, the delivery of relief, no. The Department of Health, of course, is for medical missions, no. So each agency will have its own task, and that is called the cluster approach, no. Each cluster, no, DSWD for logistics and supply, DOH for health, FIVOX or DOST or science, no. Each agency will have its own task, and they are part of the cluster approach ng United Nations, no? Which we imbibe in the NDRRMC. No? NDRRMC is a council made up of these agencies, no? And each agency is given a task. And if we, kunyari, mga doktor ako, no? And I would like to help, I would approach DOH, no? Or as a student, for example, meron kang network ng mga donors for food, donors for rebuilding houses, no? Punta tayo sa DSWD kasi sila nakakadala doon sa area na yon. We can also approach, of course, we can also approach the uniform service, no? Especially in Coast Guard. Coast Guard kasi they bring your goods to the community, lalo na kapag dadaan pa ng dagat, no? Air Force, of course, no? So whatever your role is in DRM, there is a cluster for you, no? So all you have to do is identify which cluster you would like to be active in, no? And you can engage with that cluster. So that's how I manage my DRM activities, especially with different groups, no? I have different groups kasi, no? And I always identify their strength, and their strength I match with an agency or a cluster, no? So ganun ang pag-manage ko ng DRM and volunteers.
So, ayun po. So it seems that that's the last question for this lecture. Ayan, so thank you everyone para sa mga questions na yun, and thank you po Doc Butch for giving comprehensive answers to these questions. We'd like to remind everyone that it is mandatory for the participants to answer the FIVOX evaluation form kung hindi pa po nasasagutan. Tapos yung disaster preparedness seminar evaluation form, which is right in the Zoom chat here. Lalabas yan, nandyan yan. So, and of course, thank you po, Dr. Ong, for entertaining our audience's question ulit and for coming here po. So, to cap off this segment of the program, we'd like to present the certificate of recognition to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Rodrigo Angelo Ong. So, the UP Red Cross Youth would like to present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Rodrigo Angelo Ong for lending their expertise as a resource speaker in the webinar entitled Silakbo, a disaster preparedness webinar on volcanic emergencies, so which was held today on September 25, 2020. So, picture na lang po tayo in 3, 2, 1. Ayan, isa pa po. So, 3, 2, 1. Ayan. So, thank you po, Doc Butch, for lending us your time and your expertise. Salamat po.
Salamat at happy anniversary to UPRCY.
Thank you po. 28 years strong. So, again, parang siramplakan na, pero the people above is asking for it. So we'd like to remind everyone that it is mandatory for the participants to answer the FIVOX evaluation form and the disaster preparedness seminar evaluation form that is linked in the Zoom and YouTube live stream chats right now. So ganito po kasi natin matatrack yung lalo na yung mga org partners na pumunta. Tsaka para maibigay natin yung certificates nyo. We'd also like to invite our dear participants into pangkalahatan first aid training, who is first aid for this upcoming Saturday, which is bukas, September 26 from 2 to 5 p.m. via Zoom. This 3-hour first aid training webinar will gear you up with the basic knowledge that you will need in times of unfortunate circumstances. So, yung mga topics na i-discuss natin in the training will include introduction to first aid, assessment, how to deal with soft tissue injuries and musculoskeletal injuries. Registration is free, so we encourage everyone to join, especially to those who have little to no knowledge about the ABCs of first aid. So parang kumbaga ito is it's a teaser pa lang for the first aid. Isesend po natin yung link for the first aid registration sa chat. So ayun po. Feel free to open these links rin po to save it and answer it after the webinar. So, to cap this off, wait lang, nawala yung script ko. So, to cap this event off, we'd like to take a picture with everyone here right now. Kung okay lang po, pakibuksan po ng camera so we can take a picture as a whole of all the participants. Wait lang. Andrew, pwede patanggal nung share screen. Thank you. Ayan, para kita tayo lahat. Sige. Dami pala. Shit, 32. Sige. Okay. Ayan. Bilang umayos yung itsura nating lahat, no? So,
Let's go.
sige. 1, 2, 3, smile. Ayan, isa pa. Long pages to eh. So, isa pa. 1, 2, 3, smile. Psych, sinabi ko bang isa pa? Dalawa pa. Kasi apat, dalawang pages to eh. So, 1, 2, 3, smile. Tapos, last one. Promise na. So, 1, 2, 3, smile. Ayan. So, maraming
Thank you sa inyong lahat sa pagpunta.
On behalf of UP Red Cross Youth, we would like to thank you all for coming to Silakbo, a disaster preparedness webinar for volcanic emergencies. We hope you found the program informative and fun. So this is your host, Pocholo Miguel Alvarez.
And John Carl Edward B. Manimbo, signing off.
Yun. So, please don't forget to answer the forms po. Maraming salamat. Hello. Yung mga natitira pala dito, pa-compile na lang nung links, tapos pakibigay kay She, yung kay She, tsaka kay Andrew yung links, yung tatlong links. Yung for evals ng FIVOX, for evals ng DPS, tapos yung yung invitation for first aid training. So, yun lang. Other than that, shit, thank you team. Natawid natin. Shoot ang ama. Natawid natin sa wakas. Oh my God. Holy shit. Ayan. So, maraming salamat. Umalis na yung fellow MC ko. Pero, thank you sa tulong nyo. Thank you for making this event possible. Maraming salamat ulit. Ayun. So, mamaya may plano kaming mag-inuman like mamayang gabi pagka-release ng infographic. Kung gusto nyo, like, just let us know. Sige, I'll end this call na.